Welcome back to Women in Westminster, where we explore the human stories behind the headlines. I'm your host, Eleni Barrett, and today I'm speaking with Sarah Olney, who is the MP for my own constituency, Richmond Park. Sarah is the Liberal Democrat spokesperson for the Treasury and for Business and Industrial Strategy, and it's great to have you on the podcast, Sarah. Firstly, if you were hosting a dinner party, what would be your show-stopping dish? And secondly, which three people, dead or alive, would you invite?
I very much have a sweet tooth when it comes to planning meals, particularly nice posh meals. I always start thinking about the dessert first. I like a cake or a pastry. I'd probably be some sort of tart, like a lemon tart
Nice.
or a strawberry tart or something like that. That would be the thing. That would be what I would open all my quickly doing something with chicken for the main. So that would probably be my signature dish. Who would I have with it? Oh my goodness me. I think I right now am feeling very, very interested in, and I think this is particularly inspired at the moment by the fact that in the new parliament we're about 40% female, which is the highest percentage ever. And one of the first, way back when I was doing my A-level history, I had to do an extended essay, and I did it on Nancy Astor.
Oh, yeah.
First woman to be
I'd love to meet her.
And I never dreamed at the time that I'd be following in her footsteps at any time. But I was so fascinated by her. And so I would love to meet her. By all accounts, she wasn't the easiest person to get on with. And I think it obviously takes a certain amount of kind of
sort of willpower and
elected to parliament, willpower and fairly dare I say bloody mindedness. So I would love to meet her. I think she'd be absolutely fascinating. And another woman MP. It's not only women MPs I'm interested in. Just right now, that's what I'm thinking about. But Barbara Castle.
Yes.
Not so well known now, but from the 1970s, which is still a bit before my time, to be honest. But again, she was somebody else who was right there in the very centre of government at a time when women were really very sidelined. And again, I mean, what I would just like to know from both of these women is how did they find it? How did they push themselves forward? What were the things? They became both of them.
Like, what was their story and kind of what inspired them to do that?
Exactly. What were their personal traits almost that kind of made them push open at doors that defeated other women who were, also motivated, also very qualified, but they were the ones who kind of like. So I think those two certainly. I guess I need a third, don't I? There's a documentary this week, the story of Zelensky, the Ukrainian president.
Yeah.
And I find him as an individual so fascinating. The first episode of the series has been about his background as an entertainer, as a comedian, and that just is so fascinating to me that you can go from one to the other. So I think he's fascinating. Hopefully he would enjoy my lemon tart.
What has been the proudest moment in your career so far?
I think just being elected the first time, that was a real surprise to me. I stood in a by-election in December 2016, and I'd only been active in politics for about 18 months at that point. Wow. The Liberal Democrats were at a historically low ebb after the 2015 general election. Everyone thought that was the end for us as a party. And so the by-election took everybody by surprise. But it was a wonderful experience, that general election, by-election campaign. Had so many people from across the country. It was in the aftermath of the EU referendum and Donald Trump's election in America, and there were a lot of people up and down the country really feeling quite despairing about the situation in the country and the world, really feeling that liberal values, progressive values of cooperation and inclusion, were very much in retreat. And so to be able to to be part of that election campaign, to be the kind of the focus of that election campaign, have so many people come and campaign for me who were doing it because they really wanted to see a restoration of their values in public life. That was very humbling for me. And then to have won that election and to become an MP very much against my expectations. So for me, still, that's one of the things I'm sort of proudest of. And looking back now, sort of 8 years later, when we've got 72 MPs in Parliament, which is really, really extraordinary. That for me personally is one of the things that will always stand out as something I'm really, really proud of. And very much, I was kind of like the face and the name of that campaign, if you like. But I just feel very much that I was part of something much, much bigger. And that for me was really exciting. I think in Parliament, I very much enjoy being the Treasury spokesperson for the Liberal Democrats. And the thing that I really like, we've got our first female Chancellor at the moment, so I like, again, being part of it being in Parliament where women are very much holding the reins of economic policy and being the ones struck. Because I think, women have made great strides in politics, but it's
this particular Parliament is like
where we have not had the representation that we need, and it is so crucial. So I feel very pleased to be doing that.
Your point on being elected, like, well, you're hugely popular in Richmond Park. Actually, one of your leaflets came through my door today. You know, the one where you're thanking, when you're thanking everyone for voting for you. And I was just like, woo, yes. I'm interviewing her later. Like,
I don't suppose many days go past Richmond Park where one of my leaflets doesn't come through the door. But yeah, no, I mean, I've got a big pile of those in my hallway to deliver this weekend, actually, to my own neighbourhood. But it is, Richmond Park is where, I was first elected back in 2016 at that time. And so for me, it's kind of like the people who stuck with me, who believed in me then and are still supporting me now.
Still with you now.
It's not just a piece of paper. It very much comes from the heart. I am genuinely grateful to all the people who had seen me as the person who best embodies their values and wants me to speak up for them in Parliament.
Can you share a moment from your childhood or upbringing that you believe has had a significant impact on your political views?
That's really interesting, actually. I grew up in a town called Frimley,
right,
which is about 20-30 miles away from Richmond, down the M3, and it's in a parliamentary constituency called Surrey Heath. And up until July 2024, Surrey Heath was represented by Michael Gove. It is now represented, I'm very happy to say, by Liberal Democrat Al Pinkerton, who is fantastic, and I'm very proud to have him as a colleague. But before Dr. Pinkerton, it had always been represented by Conservatives. The local council, when I was growing up, was all of the councillors were Conservative. So it's as conservative a place as you can imagine up until about 2 months ago. So that's where I grew up, but my mum was a nurse at Frimley Park Hospital in Surrey Heath, which is where I was born. And my dad was a teacher at a school a little bit further away.
right.
And so for me growing up, they were both big Conservative supporters, but it was kind of, in actual fact, it was much less their politics and much more their way of life. Dad had a huge belief in education, and my mother dedicated to healthcare. And for me, it's about, taking care of every single individual, and that everybody deserves to be treated as a whole human being. Everybody deserves healthcare. Everybody deserves education. And so for me, I think almost kind of growing up, I found that the values that they kind of, gave to me in the way that they lived their lives and the service they gave to their community so at odds with their politics. And that was quite for me, that sort of, realizing that the way that the values they'd given to me were not reflected in the people that they voted for was quite a formative moment for me, I think. But certainly goes all the way back to Frimley for me, and it's a lovely community, and full of people who really care about each other. Growing up in Frimley with parents who really cared about their community, I think, as I say, particularly for me, the values that I've always taken away from the early stages, that everybody matters, everybody's got something to offer, and we all kind of need to work together to make sure that we're all in the best possible place that we can realise our skills and our contribution. So that for me is, I can't think of a single event, if you like.
Was that just a kind of collective kind of childhood experience?
Exactly, yeah.
Listeners, join us for part 2 to hear more about Sarah Olney's journey.